guys have a float tank, which is something I'm not very familiar with. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know at some point, in probably when you're still in Colorado, you were mentioning something about that already.
Right.
You mentioned that you would love to be in a clinic where you are able to perform massage therapy as well as giving people the access to it. Right. So, what's like the grand vision and the idea behind it, or philosophy even?
Right. Well, flotation therapy was created by a guy named John Lilly, who was kind of a mad scientist back in the '60s. Actually, it's been around for a long time, but it hasn't really been commercially popular until pretty recently. Even up until me moving to Colorado, there was nothing in Tampa Bay as far as flotation therapy. But basically, this guy John Lilly was trying to study the brain in isolation. So he was some kind of neuroscientist, I believe.
Oh wow!
So he was trying to basically remove external factors that were influencing neurology, essentially. So how do you do that? You cut off stimulation, right? So you cut off light, you cut off sound, you cut off even we have temperature receptors in our skin. So how do we reduce to the highest degree, reduce the amount of stimulation that's coming into the brain? And so basically what he came up with was what you might have seen on Stranger Things, which is a salt pool. It's basically a large tub with about 10 inches of water in it, filled with about 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt.
Wow.
So it's about 180 gallons, and it's medical grade Epsom salt, so magnesium. And so what that allows is the body, a human body, to float perfectly. There's a little device you can use to measure the buoyancy of the water.
Yeah.
And so when you're in there, you do not have to try to tread water or anything. You are, no matter, people say they sink like a stone, but they will float in that tank. And so
I would be that guy that say
you're gonna float. I promise you'll float.
Yeah.
And so if you imagine, that water that you're laying in, perfectly supporting you, but also being the same temperature as your skin. So we heat it up to about 94.5 degrees so that you don't feel the water, because you feel the temperature of the water when you're in there, right? You don't feel the water itself. Like if you were to get into a cold bath or a hot bath, if you sit still, you don't really feel the water you feel the water because of the temperature, not because it's touching you. Feel the cold because you feel the cold water because it's cold. But if it was the exact temperature of your skin and you were sitting perfectly still, you don't really feel the water, right? So when you're in the tank and you lay back and you stop moving and there's no light and there's no sound and you're perfectly still, eventually you stop feeling the water, you stop hearing, you stop seeing, you stop even having to interpret the temperature on your skin. You don't really have to, so you're constantly being bombarded by all this information, the light and the sound. And we live in a very stimulating, environment all the time. Not to mention gravity. We're all fighting gravity 24/7 from the time we come out of the womb. But you weren't in the womb, right? Like you're actually free of gravity in the womb. So this is kind of like being back in the womb. It really is, because it's like being in space or in the womb, because you're not having to really fight the forces of gravity anymore. And so it's really scientifically the most relaxing environment on the planet. Like there's no truly in the true sense of relaxation, which is cutting off stimulus. Right? There's no other environment that is as relaxing as flotation. So that's really, what we're trying to do with massage and all of these things is reduce the strain on the nervous system. Is really what it comes down to, as well as with posture. You're trying to fix posture in order for you to oppose gravity efficiently. Like that's the whole point, right? Is to oppose gravity efficiently. Because if my arm is out here, right, that's a lot harder to do than having it framed, and actually being supported by the rest of my body, right?
Yeah.
So, it's the same with your neck. If you start jutting forward, right? Yeah. Gravity is acting a lot harder on your head than it is when it's in a neutral, anatomically correct position. So from the day we're born, we're fighting gravity, and that's really the only reason we have muscular pain, is because muscles are activating in order to try to keep you upright. So if you're not opposing gravity efficiently, that's going to wear things down over time. So the tank being one of the few places that you're kind of free of that stress of gravity.
Yeah.
On top of all the stimulation that we have all day from the blue light and the sounds and all this stuff that we're inundated with. Combining, the work that you do and the work that I do, the postural work, along with flotation therapy, the cost effectiveness, I don't think there's anything else out there that comes close to the benefits, the synergistic kind of action that you get between those two modalities, and the cost effectiveness of it is there can't be anything better.
Wow. So what's like some of the best benefits you get out of the float tank?
It just depends what you're coming in with. It's like if everyone's nervous system is kind of stressed in a different way, right?
Yeah.
The nervous system is chief. The nervous system controls everything. Your autonomic nervous system is pumping your heart and digesting your food and doing all those things for you.
Yeah.
So you don't even realize how much work it's actually doing, 24/7, on top of trying to filter out all this data that you're constantly getting from your environment through your eyes and your nose and your ears and all of those things. So really, depending what you're coming in with, it's going to help because of the way that it affects the nervous system. If if your nervous system is typically just totally jacked, if you're a very high-strung person, it's going to downtone your nervous system. It's going to calm everything down. Pain is just a signal from your nervous system, right? So if you have a pain signal coming to your brain that's a lot higher than it should be, calming the entire nervous system, there's really nothing that doesn't benefit from that. If you're a more lethargic person, if you're a more depressed person that's kind of sleeping all the time and doesn't feel like they have energy, going in there is actually going to allow you to rest. Because sleeping on your bed and like sitting on the couch and being on your phone, like even if you're depressed, you tend to do those things, but you're not really relaxing. You're still engaged. You're still fighting the forces of gravity. You're still doing all those things. So it's almost like it adapts to whatever issue your nervous system is presenting with. Whether you're a very low-toned person or a very high-strung person, it's going to help bring you into equilibrium. If you have insomnia, it's going to help you sleep.
Oh my God, that sounds so amazing right now.
Don't worry, you'll get your chance.